Three people, three different nights, three families still waiting for answers. A wife who never came home, a news anchor who never made it to work, a geologist whose truck was found without him inside. No bodies at first, no explanations, just questions that investigators still can't answer. These are three of the most disturbing unsolved disappearances in America, and by the end of this video, you'll understand why none of them add up. December 6th, 2009, West Valley City, Utah. Susan Powell, a young mother of two, is last seen at home with her husband, Josh. By morning, she's gone. Josh Powell tells police a story that never adds up. He says he took their two young sons, ages 4 and 2, on a camping trip at midnight in freezing Utah winter temperatures. He can't explain why. He can't explain where. He waits over 12 hours before reporting Susan missing. Investigators search the house. They find something disturbing, a large damp stain on the living room carpet. The padding underneath has been cut out and replaced. Fans are running. The house smells like cleaning chemicals. Susan's co-workers say she never showed up to work that day, completely out of character for her. Her purse, phone, and glasses are still inside the house. Her car is still in the driveway. A woman who never leaves anywhere without her glasses left them behind. Search teams comb the surrounding area. Ponds, mines, fields, nothing. Josh Powell is named a person of interest almost immediately, but with no body and no direct evidence, police can't make an arrest. He refuses to take a polygraph test. He refuses to speak with investigators without a lawyer present. And then something else surfaces, something Susan had written herself months before she vanished. A letter given to a friend, to be opened only if something ever happened to her. In it, she wrote that if she ever disappeared or was found dead, it was not an accident, and Josh should be considered responsible. She had also confided in co-workers that she was afraid of her husband, afraid enough to document her fear in writing, just in case. Investigators bring cadaver dogs back to the property. The dogs alert near Susan's minivan and near a specific section of the garage. No remains are ever recovered there, but the alerts are enough to deepen suspicion that something happened inside that house that night, something far worse than a missing persons case. Investigators raid the home of Josh's father, Susan Powell. Inside, they find journals, thousands of pages, some describing disturbing, obsessive thoughts about Susan. They also find hidden cameras and images taken without consent, aimed at neighborhood children. Susan Powell is later convicted on multiple charges, including voyeurism and possession of child pornography. Susan's family is horrified. They say Josh and his father share the same home and the same secrets. There's one more detail that haunts investigators to this day. During a supervised visit, one of the young boys reportedly told a relative something about going somewhere with his mother in the trunk on a cold night, a statement too vague to serve as evidence, but disturbing enough that it was never forgotten by the people working the case. For over 2 years, Josh Powell fights for custody of his two sons. Susan's parents fight just as hard to keep the boys away from him. Then, on February 5th, 2012, a social worker arrives at Josh's home for a scheduled supervised visit. Josh opens the door, takes his two young sons inside, and locks it behind him. Within seconds, the social worker hears him say, "You can't be here." Then an explosion. Josh had rigged the house with gasoline. He kills both of his sons and himself. He leaves behind no confession, no explanation, no answers about what really happened to Susan that December night. News of the explosion spread across the country within hours. Neighbors described hearing the blast from blocks away. For Susan's family, the moment they had feared for over 2 years, losing any chance at real answers, had finally happened in the worst way possible. The case remains open, officially unsolved. A wife vanished, a father's diary full of disturbing secrets, and a fire that erased whatever truth was left. Susan Powell has never been found, and now, the only two people who might have ever told the world what really happened to her that December night are gone too, forever, leaving her children, her parents, and an entire community without closure. Jodi Huisentruit, June 27, 1995. Mason City, Iowa. A local morning news anchor is scheduled to be on air at 6 a.m. She never shows up. For Jodi, this is almost impossible to believe. Co-workers describe her as relentlessly punctual, the kind of person who set multiple alarms and always arrived early, never late. When she doesn't show and doesn't answer her phone, co-workers grow alarmed enough to call the police immediately. Officers arrive at her apartment complex parking lot and find her car. The driver's side door is open. Scattered around the vehicle, her keys, a pair of red high-heeled shoes, a hairdryer. It looks like she was getting into her car, ready for work, and something happened in the middle of that ordinary morning routine. Investigators find something else near the car. Blood, small in amount, but enough to raise serious concern. There is no sign of Jodi anywhere. A neighbor reports something chilling. Hearing a scream in the parking lot around the time Jodi would have been leaving for work that morning. Police begin building a timeline. Jodi had reportedly been receiving unwanted attention from a family friend in the weeks before her disappearance. A man who had shown up at her apartment uninvited more than once. He's questioned. He's never charged. No physical evidence directly ties him to the scene. Investigators dig deeper into Jodi's life in the weeks before she vanished. Friends say she had seemed slightly on edge recently, though she never said exactly why. Some believe she may have known something was wrong before that morning ever came. Others say it's simply hindsight coloring memories that, at the time, seemed completely ordinary. Jodi's apartment is searched thoroughly. Nothing inside suggests she planned to leave, run away, or disappear on purpose. Her belongings, her schedule, even her plans for the coming weekend, all point to a woman expecting to come home that evening, not vanish forever. The timing itself troubles investigators the most. Mason City is a small community. The distance between Jodi's apartment door and her car was only a matter of steps. For someone to be taken in that short a distance, in daylight hours, without a single witness getting a clear look, it suggests either extreme speed or someone she may not have viewed as a threat at first. Witnesses also report seeing a white, windowless van parked near the apartment complex early that morning, a vehicle that has never been identified or traced to anyone. The FBI eventually gets involved, given how quickly the case draws national attention. Jodi's story is covered widely. A young, well-known local anchor, vanishing without a trace on a normal weekday morning. Search efforts expand across the region. Fields, waterways, abandoned buildings. Nothing turns up. No remains. No confirmed sighting. No arrest. Jodi's mother spent years pushing investigators to keep the case active, refusing to let her daughter become another cold file in a drawer. In interviews, she said what so many families of the missing eventually say, that not knowing was worse than any answer could ever be. As the years pass, new tips occasionally surface. A possible sighting here, a rumor there, but none of them have ever been confirmed. In 2020, 25 years after Jodi vanished, investigators publicly named the same family friend as a person of interest once again, citing renewed forensic techniques that weren't available in 1995. He has denied any involvement. He has never been charged. He passed away years later, taking whatever he knew, if anything, with him. Local investigators say the case file remains open on their desks, revisited every few years as forensic technology advances, in the hope that some overlooked piece of evidence could finally provide an answer 3 decades of searching never could. To this day, no arrest has ever been made in Jodi Huisentruit's case. No body has ever been found. The scattered shoes, the running hairdryer, the small trace of blood in that parking lot. Those remain the only physical clues investigators have ever had. A woman who was never late for anything, vanished in the middle of her own morning routine, and the world has been asking what happened to her for nearly 3 decades, with investigators no closer to an answer today than they were on that quiet June morning back in 1995. Daniel Robinson, June 23, 2021, Buckeye, Arizona. A 24-year-old geologist is out working a job site in the desert. He never comes home. His co-workers say he left the site alone that afternoon, planning to head back to town. He never arrives. When his family reports him missing, search efforts begin almost immediately, but for days, there's no sign of him or his truck. Then, searchers find it. His truck is discovered crashed off an embankment, badly damaged. But Daniel isn't inside. His phone is still in the vehicle, powered off. His wallet is still there too. There's no blood, no sign of struggle inside the cab. Nothing to explain how he could have survived a crash like that, and simply walked away without taking the one thing almost everyone instinctively grabs first, their phone. Search efforts expand into a massive operation. Helicopters, drones, cadaver dogs, search and rescue volunteers combing the desert terrain for miles around the crash site. Daniel's father, David Robinson, refuses to wait on official searches alone. He organizes his own independent search efforts, spending months personally combing the desert, determined to find his son no matter how long it takes. Weeks pass, then months. Still nothing. Search teams face a brutal reality. The Arizona desert around Buckeye is vast, remote, and unforgiving, with terrain that can hide a person within a few hundred feet, let alone several miles. Extreme daytime heat and freezing nighttime temperatures make survival difficult even for experienced outdoorsmen. And searchers know that every week that passes reduces the odds of finding Daniel alive. Online, amateur investigators and true crime communities begin building their own theories. Some speculate Daniel may have wandered off in a disoriented state after the crash, possibly suffering a head injury that impaired his judgment. Others raise darker questions, wondering whether someone else may have been involved, given how far his remains were eventually found from the vehicle. Local authorities repeatedly state there is no evidence of foul play, but acknowledge that the distance between the crash site and where Daniel was ultimately discovered remains one of the most difficult parts of the case to explain using accident alone. Then, in April 2022, nearly a year after Daniel vanished, his remains are finally discovered. Not near the crash site. They're found in a ravine, roughly 11 miles away from where his truck went off the road. 11 miles of harsh desert terrain, on foot, injured or not, a distance that raises more questions than it answers. An autopsy is conducted, but due to the condition of the remains after nearly a year of exposure, the exact cause of death cannot be officially determined. Daniel's family refuses to accept the case as simply closed. They question how his body ended up so far from the crash. They question whether his death was truly accidental or whether something else happened in those missing months. David Robinson has said publicly that he still doesn't believe the full story has ever been told, and that he intends to keep searching for answers, even with his son's remains finally recovered. Investigators maintain that the case points to Daniel surviving the crash, then becoming disoriented, dehydrated, and lost in extreme desert heat, ultimately succumbing to the conditions somewhere along the way. But without a clear cause of death, and without any explanation for the 11-mile gap between the crash and where he was found, that theory remains just that, a theory, not a confirmed answer. Daniel's family has continued pushing for further investigation, requesting additional forensic review and raising public awareness through interviews and social media, hoping that renewed attention might eventually turn up a witness, a piece of evidence, or a detail that was missed during the initial search efforts. To this day, no one can say with certainty what happened to Daniel Robinson in the hours and days after that crash. A young geologist, experienced in desert terrain, vanishes from a routine work site, and it takes nearly a year, an 11-mile search, and a father who refused to give up just to bring him home at all. 3 people, 3 completely different lives, 3 cases that remain, in some way, still unresolved. Which of these 3 cases do you think is the most disturbing? Comment below and let me know. If you want more real, deeply researched disappearances broken down like this, subscribe. I'm covering a new case every week.